Okay, so peeps, I am going to show you now some watercolor techniques. Why use watercolor? Because they're awesome. They do all kinds of really cool things. They take on a life of their own almost. And really the control you have over watercolors really depends on the amount of water you use. So, but the point of watercolors is to have water so that you can get these really cool effects. So people who are control freaks sometimes, don't like watercolors as much as they could. So here's some things you need. You need pretty heavy paper if you can find it. If not, just do the best you can. Um, Paper will hold the water and kind of repel it so it doesn't soak in, but do what you can. You need a cup of water, you need a paper towel, and you need a tray of watercolors. And of course, a watercolor brush. How do you know it's a watercolor brush? It points at the end, but you don't need a watercolor brush if you don't have one. Just use what you got, okay? Sometimes the best art comes out of that kind of stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a layer of water down. And the point of watercolors is to have water. So I almost never use watercolors without first laying down some water. And as you can see, well, you can't really see it that well, but what I'm doing is I'm just kind of doing an orb. And within that, and I'm using Bristol board. You can get a package of Bristol board at Michael's. They're not that expensive, but they're really fun to use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a lot of water, and I'm just going to kind of let the watercolors do their thing. Okay, as you can see, they're moving around. Now, the cool part about this is that the watercolor, the water, the round orb that I did, will create a barrier, and the watercolors will not leave that barrier. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just going to kind of lay it down here. I'm not even painting really. I'm just kind of putting some water and putting some color down. Ooh, look how cool that looks. That's really cool. I love using watercolors. It's probably my favorite thing to do. Um, and the cool thing is after this dries, and it will dry, and it's going to dry in a really weird way that you just have no idea how it's going to be, you can actually draw over it, and you can have like marbled paper. So you can actually marble your paper by just doing watercolors. And I'm just going to mush it around a little bit. But that is called wet on wet, okay? Now, another technique is called dry on wet. So again, I'm going to put some water down, not as much, okay? And on my brush, I'm going to make sure that I don't have too much water. And what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of, this one, as you can see, I have more control over. So my paint is not very watery, okay? And as you can see, this one, I can actually move it around and it will kind of do what I say, more or less. And as you can see, I'm going to make something, you know what? I'm going to make a lime or a lemon or something like that, okay? So I'm going to start on the edges. And again, I'm not adding water, I'm just adding paint, okay? But even so, there's some water down there. So the water is helping me create this form, okay? And yeah, look how cool that looks. That's going to be a really cool lemon. Hold on, let me make this more lemony up here. Okay. And then, again, I'm not going to add a lot of water. I'm just going to add paint, okay? So my brush is almost dry. And I'm going to kind of go in the middle here and spread it out. And that's the cool thing about watercolor. Oh, look at this guy's kind of doing things over there. Now, what happens if you make a mistake in watercolor or it's just too much? You can like soak it up. So you put a little edge in and bloop, there it goes. Isn't that cool? Look, the whole thing is soaking in. So you can always kind of just pull the extra out if that is what you want to do, okay? So I'm going to keep working on my lemon, okay? And start moving it around and moving the paint around. Again, I don't have a lot of water on it, just enough just to make it lovely, okay? And here we go. That's kind of a fat little lemon there, but that's okay. We're not going to lemon shame this thing. Here we go. And as you see, when I have this, when I have just a little bit of water, I have more control over what goes on in it. So this is called wet on dry, okay? And let me just move this in a little bit. There has to be the little that part there. Okay, because I can just get into this and do this all day. Now, the last technique here is dry on dry. And this is basically, I don't add water. Okay, and in this, I can actually get kind of like an ink kind of thing going here. So let me get this extra water off the brush. So I can actually just draw with it and do all kinds of cool things. See, eventually, after this dries, I can go through it and all kinds of nice things will happen. So this is dry on dry, okay? And you might want to be able to do all of these before you start watercoloring and see what happens. Now, be careful in watercolor. You don't want to blend two colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. And we'll go over that a little bit, but you don't want to do that because then you get just blah, okay? And for those of you guys who are really, really, really want to do something interesting, or you want to challenge yourself, or so I just did a little square, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do kind of like a sunset thing. And I'm going to do water here, right? And it's blending up. I'm just going to let it do its thing. Also, if you notice, if I go up and down, that doesn't go in the way of the water. So whenever you're drawing something that has movement in any way, you always kind of want to go into the direction where that movement is going. See how I can make that look really nice and oceany? And I'm going to add a little green to it because, you know, there's some green in the ocean here. And if you don't like those little dots, you can just suck them up. Okay, now I'm going to put an orb of orange. Now I'm going to leave a space here. And the reason I'm leaving a space is because if the orange melts into the blue, it's not going to look very good. It's going to turn muddy. Okay, so I have this basic medium color, medium darkness, okay? And around the edges, again, I'm using very little water here because I kind of want to control it a little bit. I'm going to put a little red to make it look darker on the edge, because when you make something look darker on the edge, it gives it volume, okay? So here's my sun, and, oh well, it's a sunset, okay? So here's my sun, and I might put a little yellow in the middle, just to brighten it up there, okay? Okay, now for the sky, I can, you know, have some fun with it. Move it around, go around. Oh, as you see, I have a little bit of a drippage there. Uh-oh, there it goes again. And it's just going to go all over the place, isn't it? It's just going to do its thing. And that is kind of the cool part about watercolors, is because it does do its thing. It's going to do its thing. And that makes me happy. I don't have a lot of control over it, but it makes me happy. Okay, let's see how that works there. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a sunset on the water, and I'm going to try to outline this thing again to give myself a little more outline there. There we go. Now here's another thing. You can always let it dry and then go over it again with more detail, okay? Or you can wet it out, and then you can actually soak up some just by twirling your paintbrush over it, okay? So you can twirl your paintbrush, and that soaks up any kind of extra stuff that you don't like. And look at my sunset. It's kind of a hot mess, but I'm kind of liking it. Look at that hole there. That's very cool. Okay, so that is how to manipulate watercolors. And yeah,